Coffee. Gotta love coffee. It's literally life's elixir. I don't think I could go a day without coffee. I mean, I can, but it's not ideal to go a day without coffee. And it goes to show because right now it's 30 degrees outside, 30 degrees Celsius out in London. And that doesn't feel like 30 degrees. That feels like you're roasting inside of an oven, like quite literally roasting inside of a 200-degree oven. And on top of that, I'm wearing a blazer. Yet I'm still drinking a hot mug of coffee because can't get enough of it. Anyway, guys, this is Kai24 back at your screens, and today I'm kind of bringing you a part 2 of a video I did recently. And that video was on this little bad boy. I feel like I'm holding a weapon. You know, you could kill somebody with this. You could really do some damage. It's really heavy, you know. It feels like an axe when you hold it and just kind of... That's besides the point. This is the Ronin SC gimbal. It is a stabilizing, handheld stabilizing gimbal, and basically what it allows you to do is it allows you to take very nice, smooth shots. It's a stabilizer for your camera, so when you're recording with your camera, you don't get any of that camera shake, or you get very little, if not any, camera shake. And it's great for taking B-roll footage. It's great for doing tracking shots. It's great for filmmaking. It's great for cinematic videography. It just, all in all, having a gimbal is very, very handy. So I picked up one of these DJI Ronin SC gimbals to kind of test it out, and I did. I showed you in a video previously my first impressions, my first hand look at it when I put together that shoe shelf, and I did a little very mini cinematic sequence of showing off that shoe shelf that I put together. And it turned out pretty well. It's a very good gimbal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about this gimbal in very brief, and a problem that I've had with this gimbal and why it has massively failed me. Like, massively failed me, and I'm quite sad and disappointed. But we'll get to that after this intro. So yes, why do I say that this gimbal has failed me? I'm really enjoying like holding this. It's just, it really feels like it could do some damage. The DJI Ronin SC. Let's talk about the good stuff. The good stuff is, it is a very, very good gimbal. It's relatively small. You can see I'm kind of holding it out with one hand. It fits within the kind of frame of the camera. It's not massive. It's actually small enough to kind of fit onto the side of my backpack, kind of pack away there, and I can carry it around like I would do with my GorillaPod or any kind of small handheld tripod. You can actually put this into a kind of selfie mode, and the camera spins around at you and you can hold it out. Given that with the camera payload it is a bit heavy to kind of hold out like that and vlog, but if you want to, you can do that and you'd get some really smooth vlog. You wouldn't get that crazy camera shake you get with most kind of vlogging footage that you'd see out there. And so it is fantastic for kind of on the go traveling, vlogging, and even for kind of everyday day-to-day cinematography. It is a fantastic little gimbal. Like the DJI Ronin S and all other kind of Ronin gimbals, it has 3 mode sets that you can kind of alter the mode between, or switch between, so you can have a pan mode, a pan and tilt mode, a 360 mode, you know, whatever you want to set to it, whatever you use on a day-to-day basis or on a regular basis when you're using a gimbal. It has this nice little dial here in front, this nice little joystick, rather, not a dial, nice little joystick in front, which allows you to control the gimbal. I'm not going to give you a live preview because I don't know how much charge this thing has, but B-roll footage should, you know, it should be showing up on the screen whilst I'm showing you this stuff. Other good things about the gimbal is, like I said, it is quite nice and compact. It allows you to connect directly to your camera, and you can use the kind of power button here, the record button rather. You can use the record button to control your camera. It has a trigger button at the back as well, which are all linked to your camera. And through the software, the DJI software or the DJI app on your phone, you can actually also put this into follow mode, which you know, allows you to kind of track and follow objects. You can also use the phone as a controller. I can't remember what the term is. I'll put it up on the screen, but you can use it like a kind of essentially a remote controller. So when you tilt and pan that phone, what happens is that the Ronin also follows along with the movements of your phone, and it follows on quite through a wireless connection. So all in all, it's a fantastic gimbal. Like most of my reviews, I'm not going to go into massive amounts of depth about it, but what I want to touch on in this review is two things. You know, I've kind of given you an overview of the gimbal itself, and I've already shown you some test footage. I'll throw some more test footage on the screen. Like all other DJI gimbals, it's quite good. You know, footage is smooth. Once you've got that balance right and you've auto-tuned it, you know, you can get some really, really fantastic looking footage. And I don't doubt that this gimbal can perform really well for long periods of time. It does have this removable charger, so you can have multiple of these and kind of hold on to it, which is different to the newer model RSC2s. And then it has this kind of removable handle is what you would want to call it. I don't know, you know, handle stand thing, which kind of spreads out and becomes a stand like that. Now, so the two things that I want to talk about are, is this good for content creators looking to get a first gimbal? Well, given that the price of this thing is, you know, right now retailing at about £200 used, I would say this is a fantastic gimbal for first time users. If you've never used a gimbal before, this is really good. It's very straightforward, and there's a whole bunch of tutorials from other YouTubers and content creators out there on YouTube already that help you set up the gimbal very easily. It's very, very easy to balance. It has a quick release plate that kind of remembers the positioning of the plate and everything. So, you know, if you're taking the camera on and off, it does keep track of that. It's a very good, easy to use, user-friendly gimbal, I would say. However, the second thing I want to talk about is the fact that it has failed me. And the reason it has failed me is because it's probably both a limitation of the gimbal as well as a problem on my end. And that the limitation of the gimbal being that this came out after the DJI Ronin S. It is quite an old gimbal. I mean, it's a few years old now, maybe just over 2 years old. And it did come after the DJI Ronin S as a more compact, smaller gimbal. It's got some upgraded features to the Ronin S, like the axes can be locked into place, which is fantastic. So that means that it's not kind of flinging around when you're not using it or if you're carrying it around. Whereas if the axes are all kind of unlocked, then what happens is it tends to kind of fling around like that, which is what the Ronin S does. And so yeah, you're avoiding stuff like that happening with the Ronin SC because it does have these kind of gimbal axis locks, which is fantastic. So it has minor upgrades to the Ronin S, but it's a more compact gimbal. So it's just kind of easier to carry around, where the Ronin S is slightly larger, meant for bigger payloads, and this one can't really take a payload of I think it's about 2 kg. So that being said, the limitation is one of those, the payload. It can't take a very large payload, which means that big cameras are completely out of the question. So if you've got a large DSLR camera or one of the larger size mirrorless cameras, then you are going to struggle using this gimbal. And that's what's happened with me. Because I recently upgraded to the Canon EOS R, it is a slightly bigger camera body, which means that when I'm using EOS R on this camera, I'm facing a few issues. Now let me clarify that I'm using the EOS R with a EF 16 to 35 with a mount adapter, and the combined payload of that is just maybe too big. I think with some of the bigger lenses, you are going to face issues if you're using a camera like the EOS R. And one of the biggest issues is that when you're tilting the camera, the viewfinder, the eyepiece for the viewfinder keeps hitting the back of the gimbal here. And it is quite frustrating because that basically means that you're not getting the full potential of the gimbal out. You can't utilize all of the modes properly. You're kind of having to force the gimbal into position if you want to kind of move the eyepiece, force the eyepiece through, which isn't ideal. It could damage the motors, it could damage your camera. So if you intend to use the EOS R with a larger lens like I do, then this gimbal is not going to do the job. And that's where that part of my kind of problem lies, is that I'm trying to use this gimbal with large lenses because that's the kind of focal length that I want to get. If you were to try and use it with, say, a nifty 50 lens or 50mm lens, the 50mm 1.8, maybe even 35mm, you might not face those same problems because those lenses are slightly smaller. However, with an EF lens, larger EF lens with a mount adapter, it's just not going to work. It just doesn't give you the full potential of the gimbal, and that is where this gimbal has failed me, because I did buy it with the intention of kind of keeping it and using it long term, because I thought that it would be compatible with the EOS R. I didn't do my research well enough, which is why I bring this video to you guys, so that you guys know why this gimbal might not be for you. If you've got a larger body like the EOS R, R5, R6, I'm not sure about the RP, maybe the RP might do it, but if you've got one of those cameras, or if you've got cameras of that kind of size and weight, then you're gonna face limitations when using this smaller gimbal, which is why I then went and picked up this guy. This is the DJI RSC2. So it's the second version of the Ronin SC. It is a more updated version of the SC, and it does allow larger payloads like the EOS R with a larger lens to fit on it without obstructions. So I'm going to do a full review on this later. I'm going to put this aside for now because that is not the focus of today's video. This is because I have not been able to kind of test this out to its full potential using the EOS R. I haven't got as much to say about it. However, I do still think it is a fantastic gimbal for anybody who's looking to use a smaller payload. If you've got something like the Canon M50 or some of the smaller Sony cameras, then I highly doubt that you're going to face much of a problem, especially if you're using it with those native lenses. Like if you're going to use this with the M50 and a 22mm lens, or even the 16mm Sigma lens, then you probably won't face the same problems. So smaller cameras, smaller kind of lens packages, smaller camera lens body combinations will work better with the DJI Ronin SC as opposed to having those larger packages. If you want to go for those larger packages, I would highly recommend kind of investing in something like the Gimbal or the DJI Ronin SC2 or the Ronin S2 or the Ronin S, or whatever you have access to or whatever you can afford in those price ranges, that gets you a gimbal that can hold a slightly larger payload. That is the biggest kind of downfall of the SC, and why I've seen kind of mixed reviews about it online, especially when I went hunting about how to get that issue fixed, which I couldn't find a proper solution to. So that's my quick review about the DJI Ronin SC. Fantastic little gimbal. Would have loved to use it a little bit more, but unfortunately I am having to get rid of it because it just is not fit for purpose. It doesn't serve the purpose why I bought it for. So there you have it, guys. I hope that was useful to you if you are in the market for a gimbal. That gives you a couple of options there right near the end where I just spoke about different types of gimbals that you could look at picking up. I am going to do a much more extensive review on the RSC2. I'm going to compare the kind of pros and cons of the RSC2 versus the SC, and you know, I'm not going to have the SC at hand because I am selling it. There's no point in me keeping around an expensive gimbal when somebody else could be using it that could utilize the gimbal better than I can. So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video and that it was useful to you, and if it was, make sure you hit that like button, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button if you enjoy my content in general, and to know when my new content is coming out and my next videos are coming out, hit that notification bell and you'll get told exactly when my next videos drop. So until next time, everybody, this is Kai24, very hot Kai24. I'm gonna take another I say I'm hot, then take some more coffee. This is Kai24 signing out.